In June of 2014, a young man arrived at an airport to go home. He never boarded his flight. Instead, he ran. His name was Lars Mittank. He was 28 years old from Germany, and by every description that mattered, he was ordinary. Quiet by nature, reserved in groups. The kind of person who rarely insisted on being the loudest voice in a room. Friends described him as polite, calm, predictable, someone who preferred stability over surprises. He kept a steady job. He stayed close to family. He did not have a reputation for drama, risk, or impulsive decisions. There was nothing about Lars that suggested that one day he would vanish so completely that the last thing the world would have of him would be a grainy sequence of security camera footage. A man running as if his life depended on it. That summer, Lars traveled with friends to Bulgaria for a holiday. Their destination was Golden Sands, a crowded resort along the Black Sea, bright in the daytime and alive at night. The kind of place that seems designed to dissolve responsibility. You wake up late, you eat in the sun, you drift between beach and street and bars, and time stops feeling like time. People are on vacation, which means they are relaxed, distracted, open. The town is full of strangers, which means no one knows you well enough to notice small changes. For most of the trip, Lars blended into the group. He went out with his friends. He spent time on the beach. He drank. He ate. He laughed when it was funny. If there were ordinary annoyances, they were the kind that passed quickly. The minor frictions of travel. Nothing that would hint at what was coming. Nothing that would make anyone say later that the warning signs were obvious. Then, near the end of the vacation, something happened that set the entire case in motion. There was a confrontation in a bar. The details have been repeated so many times online that the edges have blurred, but the central point remains. A situation escalated. It became physical. Lars was struck in the head. When people hear that, they often imagine a dramatic scene, blood, a collapse, an ambulance. But many head injuries do not announce themselves. Sometimes a person remains standing. Sometimes they insist they are fine. Sometimes adrenaline hides what the body's trying to say. And sometimes the real consequences come later, not in a single moment, but in hours and days of symptoms that refuse to settle. After that night, Lars began to complain of physical problems that did not go away. Headaches, dizziness, a sense of being off balance. Not only the kind of dizziness that makes the room spin, but the kind that makes you feel slightly detached from your own thoughts. Like your mind is running a fraction of a second behind the world. Like something is wrong inside your head, but you cannot point to it. Sleep became difficult. When he slept, it was shallow, restless, interrupted. The body can tolerate a lot when sleep is solid, but when sleep breaks, everything becomes sharper. Noise becomes too loud. Light becomes too harsh. Small discomforts become intolerable. The mind loses its ability to filter. And then there was the change in behavior. Lars became quieter, more tense, more alert. Friends noticed he was not relaxing. His attention seemed split, as if he were listening for something, scanning, trying to interpret the environment. That kind of vigilance can look like anxiety, but it can also look like someone trying to make sense of a sensation that will not make sense. A person who feels wrong but cannot explain why will often search for reasons outside themselves. Lars sought medical help. He was prescribed antibiotics for a suspected infection and was advised not to fly for several days. In most stories, that would be a minor setback, a delay, an inconvenience. But in this case, those days were the space in which everything fell apart, because his friends returned home to Germany without him. Lars stayed behind alone. At first, staying alone may not have sounded alarming. People stay an extra night on vacation, people miss flights, people get sick. But the difference between being alone and being with others is not just practical, it is psychological. When you are with friends, they anchor reality. They help you interpret symptoms. They tell you when you are overreacting and when you are not. They distract you from spiraling thoughts. They create a sense of normality simply by continuing to behave normally. Alone, the mind has room to loop. Lars moved hotels, apparently seeking a quieter place. It is easy to imagine the logic. The first hotel was busy, too much noise, too many people. If your head hurts and you cannot sleep, you want distance from chaos. You want stillness, you want recovery, but stillness can become a problem when your nervous system is already on edge. A quiet hallway makes footsteps clearer. A quiet room makes every sound outside the door feel significant. The mind starts to label things. That door closed too hard. That voice sounded like it stopped when I passed. That person looked at me too long. The brain is built to detect threat. When you are stressed, exhausted, and in pain, the brain becomes overprotective. It starts to detect threat everywhere because it would rather be wrong 100 times than miss the one-time danger is real. Over the next days, Lars began calling his mother repeatedly. The calls, as described afterward, were urgent. He sounded frightened. He said he was being watched. He believed people around him were connected, as if there were a network, as if he had stepped into something he did not understand. He suspected hotel staff. He suspected strangers. He felt unsafe. It is important to be careful here because we do not know exactly what Lars experienced internally, and it would be irresponsible to declare any single explanation as the truth. But we do know the shape of the fear, and the shape matters. When a person begins to interpret ordinary life as coordinated threat, the world becomes a trap. Everywhere you look, you see possibility. Not possibilities for fun, but possibilities for harm. A glance becomes a signal. A whisper becomes a plan. A conversation in a language you do not understand becomes a conspiracy. The worst part is that it is self-reinforcing. Once the fear takes hold, every new detail becomes confirmation. His mother tried to reassure him. She suggested stress and exhaustion. She may have wondered about the antibiotics. She may have wondered about the head injury. She encouraged him to focus on one simple goal, getting home. Because home is not only a place, it is familiarity, it is language. It is a bed you know. It is people who can reach you. It is the feeling that the world has rules again. But Lars did not calm down. If anything, his urgency increased. Imagine what it would feel like to be in a foreign country, alone, with a pounding headache, with sleep shattered, with your body telling you something is wrong, and your mind insisting that people are watching you. Imagine trying to hold on to rationality while your nervous system is screaming. Imagine making decisions under that pressure. The easiest thing to do would be to stay inside, to lock the door, to hide. But hiding also creates its own fear. The longer you stay, the more you feel trapped. The more you feel trapped, the more you need escape. By June 8th, Lars chose escape. He went to Varna Airport to fly home. Airports have a particular kind of atmosphere. They are busy but controlled, full of rules, lines, signs, announcements. They can feel like order, like a corridor you move through towards safety. But they can also feel like surveillance, a place where eyes and cameras are everywhere, where every movement is watched, where authority is close. For someone who already feels observed, an airport can feel unbearable. Witnesses later described Lars as nervous and agitated. He paced. He looked around constantly. He seemed suspicious, as if he did not trust the room. He did not look like an ordinary traveler worried about missing a flight. He looked like a man who believed that something was about to happen. Before boarding, Lars went to the airport medical office. Again, we cannot know his exact motivation. He might have wanted reassurance. He might have still felt unwell. He might have wanted a doctor to clear him. Or he might have been driven there by fear, hoping that a medical professional would confirm that nothing was wrong, hoping that a calm voice would break the spiral. What happened next is the most famous part of the case, because it is recorded. In the security footage, Lars is in the medical office. Then he stands abruptly, not slowly, not casually. His posture changes in an instant. His head turns sharply. His body looks tense, as if he is reacting to an immediate threat. His face shows fear, not confusion, not hesitation, fear. He turns and runs. He runs out of the medical office and into the terminal. He sprints past other passengers. People move out of the way, startled. But no one tackles him. No one blocks him. Because in a public place, when someone runs, most people assume it is not their business. They assume it is an emergency they do not understand. They assume security will handle it. Responsibility dissolves into the crowd. Lars exits the terminal, crosses outside areas, and climbs a fence. Beyond that fence is a wooded area near the airport, and then he disappears. That is the last confirmed sighting of Lars Mittank. What makes this case so unsettling is how clear the moment of departure is. In many disappearances, there is a final phone call, a last text message, a vague timeline. Here, the last moment is visible. We see him moving. We see his urgency. We see the split second when his behavior becomes something else entirely. But video does not show thought. We do not know what he believed. We do not know what he saw. We do not know what he heard or misunderstood or imagined. We only know that in that moment, staying felt impossible. Afterward, authorities searched. Police, search dogs, volunteers, helicopters. They combed the surrounding area. They looked for clothing, for belongings, for footprints, for any indication of direction. They searched fields and wooded terrain. They looked for signs of injury, signs of collapse, signs of a struggle. They found nothing, no bag, no passport, no phone, no body. Nothing that could explain what happened in the woods after the last frame of footage. As days passed, the search shifted into a different phase. Posters, calls, reports, leads that went nowhere. For families of missing people, this is one of the most brutal transitions. The first days carry momentum. People are actively looking. Every hour matters. Then the hours turn into days, and the days turn into waiting. The world moves on, but the family stays pinned to a single moment, a single uncertainty. For Lars's mother, that uncertainty would have been unbearable because she had heard his fear. She had heard that something was wrong before he disappeared. She would have replayed those calls. She would have questioned every sentence. Did he give a clue without realizing it? Did he mention a name, a sound, a detail that could have changed everything if it had been understood? And for people watching from the outside, the footage creates a different kind of torment. It makes the disappearance feel preventable. You watch him run and you want to step into the scene. You want to grab his arm to ask him what is wrong, to tell him to slow down, to tell him he is safe, to bring him back to a chair, to call someone, to do something. But the footage is silent and the past is sealed. Theories grew because theories are what the mind produces when it cannot tolerate uncertainty. One possibility is an acute episode of paranoia or psychosis. The word psychosis can sound dramatic and distant, as if it only happens to people with lifelong mental illness. But acute episodes can occur in people with no prior history, especially under certain conditions. Severe sleep deprivation, intense stress, isolation, physical illness, medication reactions, neurological disruption after head trauma, a nervous system locked in alarm. In that state, the world can transform. A person may misinterpret neutral actions as hostile. They may become certain that people are watching them. They may believe they are in danger even when no danger exists. And when the belief becomes certainty, the body responds accordingly. The body does not care whether the threat is real. It cares whether the brain believes it is real. Another possibility is concussion-related panic and disorientation. Concussions can affect mood and cognition. They can increase anxiety. They can create derealization, a sensation that the world is strange, unreal, wrong. Combine that with being far from home, in a foreign language environment, with disrupted sleep and persistent pain, and panic becomes more likely. In that scenario, Lars might not have been hallucinating. He might have been overwhelmed by internal sensations and interpreting them as external threat. When your body feels wrong, you look for reasons. And if you already feel vulnerable, strangers can become those reasons. There is also the simplest possibility, the one that many people do not want to accept because it feels too ordinary for such a strange disappearance. That Lars ran into the woods, became lost or injured, and died there. People underestimate how quickly panic creates distance. Fear makes a person move in ways they never would in calm circumstances. It makes them avoid roads, avoid open spaces, avoid help. It makes them hide. It makes them choose the worst direction simply because it feels less exposed. If Lars believed someone was after him, he might have run deeper into the woods to hide. He might have kept moving until exhaustion hit. He might have collapsed somewhere that was difficult to see from above, somewhere hidden by brush or terrain. And if that happened, it is possible that he was missed, because searching is not magic. Landscapes are complex. Bodies can be surprisingly difficult to locate, especially in areas with vegetation, uneven ground, and limited visibility. This is an awful reality of missing person cases. People are sometimes found years later in areas that were searched before, not because searchers did not care, but because the world hides things well. Then there are darker theories, that Lars encountered someone after he ran, that he was harmed, that he was picked up, that something criminal occurred. These theories persist because the disappearance feels too clean, too empty, too unresolved. But they remain theories because there is no confirming evidence, no witness who came forward with a verifiable account, no physical trace that points to foul play. There is also the idea that Lars survived and chose to disappear, that he started a new life. It is a comforting theory for some because it keeps the possibility of survival alive. But it is difficult to reconcile with the urgency and chaos of his last known actions. Disappearing intentionally requires planning, documents, money, and a stable mind. Lars left behind belongings and ran into woods. That does not look like preparation, it looks like flight. What remains is the central question that the footage cannot answer. What was he running from? If you want to understand why this case grips people, you have to imagine the moment from inside his skin. Not as an internet spectator analyzing angles and timestamps, but as the person in that room. Imagine you have not slept properly for days. Your head hurts. You feel dizzy. Your body feels fragile. Your mind feels jumpy, as if it cannot settle. You have been alone in a hotel, hearing noises you cannot place, watching strangers you cannot interpret, feeling like you are being watched. You call home and hear reassurance, but the reassurance does not match your internal experience. Your nervous system does not care about logic. It cares about survival. Now you are in an airport. Bright lights, hard floors, constant sound, people everywhere, strangers, uniforms, rules, pressure. You go into a medical office, a small room, a professional environment that should feel safe, but you are already primed for threat. Your brain is scanning for the smallest sign that confirms your fear. A sound, a glance, a phrase you mishear, a movement that feels wrong, and then something inside you snaps into certainty. You have to leave now. In that moment, reasoning is a luxury. The body runs the oldest program it has: fight or flight, escape. So you stand, you run. You do not explain because explanation takes time, and time feels deadly. You do not ask for help because help feels risky. You do not slow down because slowing down feels like dying. You run through the terminal. People stare. Some step aside. No one knows you. No one knows your mind. They see only motion. They see urgency. They assume it is personal. They assume someone else will respond. That is how crowds work. That is how disappearances can happen in public. You reach the outside. A fence stands between you and the trees. A fence is a boundary for calm people. In panic, it is nothing. You climb it, you go over it, you choose the woods because the woods feel like cover. They feel like distance. They feel like the one place where eyes cannot follow. And then the world becomes something older and more dangerous. The woods do not care about your fear. They do not care about your confusion. They do not care that you are not thinking clearly. They are uneven ground, thick brush, heat, insects, scratches, dehydration. They are a place where you can lose direction quickly, especially if you are running without looking back. If Lars went into those woods in a state of panic, the next hours could have been a blur of hiding and moving, stopping to listen, moving again, not knowing where he was, not trusting any open space, not trusting roads, not trusting people. Panic tells you that if you are seen, you are caught. Panic tells you that the sound of a car means danger, not rescue. If he collapsed, it could have happened in a place that was not obvious. A depression in the ground, thick vegetation, a ditch, a space that looked like nothing from above. If he died there, the world may still hold that answer, hidden by landscape and time. If he encountered someone, the encounter would have happened in a context where Lars was vulnerable. A frightened man alone, possibly disoriented, possibly confused. Vulnerability attracts danger. But again, without evidence, it remains only a possibility, one of many. This is what makes the case uniquely haunting. It is not only a mystery of geography, it is a mystery of the mind. Because the disappearance begins with fear, and fear is invisible. We do not know whether the fear came from medication effects, concussion, sleep deprivation, or something else. We do not know whether Lars's brain created patterns that were not there, or whether some real event triggered his panic. We do not know if he misheard something in the medical office, if he saw someone who frightened him, if a phrase in a foreign language sounded like a threat, if his mind filled in the blanks with the worst story possible. We do not know. All we know is that the fear was strong enough to override everything else, strong enough to make him leave behind the path home, strong enough to make him abandon the terminal, the crowds, the structure, and choose the unknown. And after the unknown, there was silence. As the months passed and no trace was found, the case spread online. People watched the footage again and again. They studied the way he turns, the way he moves, the way his face changes. Humans do this when they cannot accept randomness. We search for meaning in motion because we want to believe that if we understand the moment well enough, the ending will reveal itself. But endings do not always reveal themselves. Sometimes the truth is simple and cruel. Sometimes a person runs, becomes lost, and dies. Sometimes a person runs, meets the wrong individual, and the story ends off camera. Sometimes a person runs, survives, and disappears into a life that cannot be traced. And sometimes we never know which one is real. For Lars's family, that uncertainty would have become a permanent weight. Every year that passes is both proof that hope is still possible and evidence that hope may be hurting more than it helps. Every rumor becomes a stab. Every possible sighting becomes a question that cannot be answered. Every anniversary becomes a reminder of the day he stood up and ran. For the rest of us, the case persists because it disrupts our sense of order. Airports are supposed to be places where you are either arriving or leaving. They are supposed to be controlled spaces. They are supposed to be safe. They are surrounded by cameras and systems and people. And yet in seconds, a person left the frame and the world never caught up. That is why this story feels like a crack in reality. It suggests that stability is thinner than we want it to be, that a mind can become unrecognizable under pressure, that fear can reshape perception, that a person can go from normal vacation to total disappearance with only a few days in between. It also forces an uncomfortable question. If this could happen to someone described as stable, ordinary, cautious, then what does that say about how fragile the mind can be when the right conditions line up? Pain, sleep loss, isolation, stress, an unfamiliar environment, a head injury, a body stuck in alarm. Even if we never know the exact mechanism, we can see the result. A man running, and then nothing. Lars Mittank vanished in broad daylight from the edge of an international airport without leaving a confirmed trace behind. Sometimes the most terrifying mysteries are not about where someone went. They are about what someone believed they had to escape. Because the woods did not chase him. The fence did not threaten him. The terminal did not attack him. Whatever he was running from, the most plausible possibility is that it was inside his own perception, a reality that felt certain to him and invisible to everyone else. And that is the horror at the center of this case. A person can be trapped in a story their brain is telling, and they can act on it as if it is fact. They can run, they can vanish, and the rest of the world can be left with nothing but footage, theories, and the unbearable weight of not knowing. Lars Mittank has never been found. What do you think happened to Lars? Comment below. And remember to like and follow for more similar mysteries.